Hey, everybody. Hey, let me welcome you. Welcome, everybody. It's Monday at noon. We're doing another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. If you're catching this on replay, let me know in the chat box. I'd love to hear from you. Type hashtag replay. I know a lot of people are able to catch this live during the day, but a lot of others aren't. Today, we are going to talk about how to become a millionaire freight broker. I'm going to share with you 7 rules, right? 7 rules to become a millionaire freight broker. After all, that's everybody's goal, right? They want to be a millionaire. There's even a TV show about it. Let me shut off my phone here so that we don't get interrupted. I apologize. And so again, today we're going to go over how to become a millionaire freight broker. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, but more importantly, I'm going to tell you about some of the mistakes I made. And I'm going to hopefully you're going to be able to learn from those mistakes in advance. So welcome, everybody. If you're catching this on replay, if you're catching this live, thank you for being here. I'm super excited whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're at. We're streaming on both. Thank you for being here. Again, my name is Dennis Brown. I've been an entrepreneur. If this is your first time in the stream, I've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years, been very, very blessed, done over $200 million as an entrepreneur, as a freight broker. Started my freight brokerage in 2003, had zero experience, went on to grow that company to over $80 million a year in sales and then sold it. But I'm also the owner of freightbrokerbootcamp.com, which is the most cost-effective, comprehensive online freight broker and freight agent training program available today. So if you're curious about becoming a freight broker, or you've been thinking about becoming a freight broker, make sure you check that out. Again, freightbrokerbootcamp.com. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Type in the chat box. You guys are already ahead of me. I love it. So I know you've been here before. Type in the chat box. Let me know the city and state that you're logging in from. And I am going to try to give you a few shout outs. Try to get to everybody. Can't promise it, but here we go. Paul Spates, welcome from Frisco, Texas. Welcome, Miss McCoy from Cleveland, Ohio. Farouk from Brooklyn, New York. Cynthia Moore from District Heights, Maryland. John Perry from Cleveland, Georgia. Elma, watching the replay. Thank you. Cindy, Houston, Texas. Welcome, Cindy Kane from Houston, Texas. She was a big winner of one of my Freightpreneur t-shirts that a giveaway that I did maybe a couple weeks ago. Welcome, Budal Aziz from Houston, Texas. Welcome, Ree Renfro from Georgia. Welcome, Harriet from Montreal, Canada. Love it. So we've got US and Canada in the house. Melissa from Allentown, PA. Tyreed from Josefila. Okay, I'm not sure where that is, but Franklin from Elizabeth, New Jersey. Mary from North Carolina. Jamal from, I lost it. Jamal, where'd you go? I lost it. Sorry, my friend. I'm going to keep going here. Lewis from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Alicia from Atlanta. Patty Morgart from Rock Springs, Wyoming. Clarence Snell from Houston. Roberto from Laredo, Texas. D. Madri from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Michael Lett from Monroeville, Alabama. The Patriot Marine, thank you for your service. Camp Pendleton, California, as usual. Eduardo from Las Vegas, Nevada. Man, we got a lot of people live today. Awesome. I'm excited. And again, for those of you that are just joining me here, today we're going to go over how to become a millionaire freight broker. I'm going to share with you 7 rules on how to become a millionaire freight broker. These are from my own personal, hard-fought, very expensive lessons as an entrepreneur for the last 25 years. So I'm going to share these with you, and hopefully you can learn in advance from my mistakes, because I made plenty, I promise you. Sean Smalls from Waterboro, South Carolina. Gwen from Nashville, Tennessee. SLD from Houston. Arthur from Long Island. Keith Felder from California, Jeff DeReyes from Bidford, Maine, Latasha from Mississippi, and the list goes on and on. Thank you so much for being here. Again, it doesn't matter if you're catching this on replay or you're catching this live. I appreciate your time. I know that time is the most precious commodity. It's more valuable than money, right? And so time and oxygen are probably the 2 things we need the most, right? So I really appreciate you being here. We are going to dive into this training shortly. And the reason why I decided to do this today was because I get this question all the time. Questions like this: how long did it take you to, earn your first $1 million, or to save your first $1 million, or to become a millionaire? How long did it take you? How many failures did you have? everybody thinks that the road to success as an entrepreneur is an overnight journey, right? But as you've probably heard before from other people, my overnight success story took 10, 15, 20 years for it to unfold. I had a lot of failure early in my career. So for those of you that have had some failure and setbacks, it's not too late. Okay. And so I wanted to try to inspire you a little bit that no matter where you are, whether you're in 20s or your 30s or your 40s, or even in your 50s or later, it's not too late to become a millionaire if you apply some of these rules and you get to work and you take action. Okay. So first, before we go live, I want to do a special shout out to all of my Freight Broker Bootcamp members, all the people who are a part of my paid course, my paid membership. Type in the chat box, hashtag Freight Broker Bootcamp. Let me know that you're out there. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that are live on this stream, hashtag Freight Broker Bootcamp, right? Type that in the chat box. Let me know. And as a student, I'm going to give you a special shout out. Really appreciate you being here. Again, we've trained over 8,000 students in Freight Broker Bootcamp over the last 10 years. I do these lives every week. And these lives are free. As you guys see, there was no paywall. You didn't have to pay to get into these trainings. But ultimately, my bootcamp members, people like Lando D, GL Solutions, Paul Spates, you can see them coming up on the screen here, Cindy Kane, Alma Estera, Teresa, Brahim, all of these people are already Freight Broker Bootcamp students. So if you're curious about becoming a freight broker, make sure you check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Jeranger Lewis, Latasha, welcome. Brad Vickers, welcome. Susanna, welcome. Patty Morgart, welcome. Larry Little, Brenda, welcome. James Goodyear, welcome everybody. You can see that there's a bunch of people that are already students of my course, either in the past, present, and some of you that are watching this today are going to become future students of mine, and I look forward to helping you. So welcome everybody for being here. Thank you so much. So right now we're going to dig in. So I hope you guys are ready because we're going to go over 7 rules for becoming a freight broker millionaire. All right. Now, I said to you before that my journey to become a millionaire did not happen overnight. It took many, many years. I started my first business over 25 years ago. Since then, I've been very blessed, done over $200 million as an entrepreneur, but it took a long time to figure out the ropes. I made tons of mistakes along the way. And so I'm going to share with you these 7 lessons. Here we go. Lesson number 1. Lesson number 1 is you need to understand 2 very important business terms, and one is called CAC and one is called LTV. CAC stands for customer acquisition cost. That is the cost that that a company invests or pays to acquire a customer. So as a freight broker, there's a cost to acquire a customer. Usually that cost is in time and energy and resources to acquire that customer. The second part of that, LTV, stands for lifetime value, right? What is the lifetime value of a client? For example, if you do $100,000 in revenue with a client per year and you have that client for 6 years, that lifetime value of that client is $600,000, right? So the math equation, your customer acquisition cost is very relative to your lifetime value. So perfect example. Here's a question for you. Would you invest, this is just a hypothetical, would you invest $10,000 to get back $600,000 in revenue? Simple question, right? Because on that $600,000 in revenue as a typical broker, you're probably making at or around 15%. And I'm not very good at math, but that's over $900,000, or that's $90,000 in profit, right? So would you trade $10,000 to acquire a customer to make $90,000 over the lifetime of that client? Probably, right? That's a 9 times return on investment. There's a gentleman, a well-known entrepreneur, copywriter, author by the name of Dan Kennedy, who coined the phrase, something along the lines, whoever can spend the most to acquire a customer is the winner, right? The company that's willing to invest the most to acquire a customer will always win. Something along those lines. And he was a very successful entrepreneur. And what he meant was, if you are willing to invest time, energy, and resource to acquire a good customer that has a strong lifetime value, you can win. You will win. And in the freight brokerage business, the great part about it is it's repeat and referral business, right? You're not going to do just one load with a shipper. You're going to do one load a week, one load a month, one load a day. You're going to do regular shipments with most shippers because most shipments are recurring when you're in as a freight broker selling commercial freight, right? So no, the first rule is understanding CAC, which is customer acquisition cost. And the second term there is LTV, lifetime value. That's rule number one. You have to understand those. That's a fundamental business principle that you need to understand. All right. Number two, under promise and over deliver. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you have probably heard this, right? This is a core tenet. This is a core value that I have. Again, most young entrepreneurs do the exact opposite. They overpromise and underdeliver. The problem with that is that in order to succeed as a business, you have to get repeat and referral business. If you don't get that, it's going to be very hard to build a sustainable, long-term, profitable business. And so repeat and referral business is powerful, but it's only going to work if you have happy customers. And so my philosophy has always been under promise, over deliver, right? You want them to be surprised at the level of service that you provided for them. And so ultimately, again, because repeat and referral business is so important, under promise, over deliver is critical because you can never undo a bad reputation, right? With the internet the way it is, social media the way it is, if you're not delivering at a very high level, other people are going to know about it if you have unhappy customers. So make sure that you understand and you follow the principle of under promise, over deliver. That's rule number two. Rule number three is to diversify your customer base. Now, this should go without saying, but I've seen many a broker who has went out, landed a big client, and then sat back on their laurels collecting checks and making a lot of money. I remember having an agent of mine years ago that landed a very big client. He was doing over $1 million a year with that client, making really good margins, making a lot of money. And he didn't diversify his customer base, even though I pounded him over the head with it. And then eventually he lost that client and his business went from 7 figures to 0 almost overnight. And it almost caused him to go bankrupt. He almost lost everything he had because he didn't diversify his customer base. And so I've seen too many businesses in the freight logistics industry, as well as other industries, that are too beholden to 2 or 3 or 4 big customers, and they don't diversify their customer base. Now, when I launched my brokerage, I knew that I had no intentions of living and dying by a few customers. So I took more of a mutual fund approach. I highly diversified our customer base. And I tell the story that when I sold the company in 2016, we were doing over 80 million in sales. And I think at that time, the largest individual client that we had was doing 5 or 6% of our revenue, right? So while that would hurt if we lost that client, it wouldn't put us out of business, right? It wasn't going to set things upside down. We were not going to be in financial straits just because we lost 1 or 2 clients. And again, the largest client out of that maybe did 5 or 6%. So diversifying your customer base is critically important, right? I've seen too many freight brokers and freight agents, go down because they did not diversify their customer base. That's rule number 2. Or actually rule number 3. I'm sorry. That's number 3. Number 4, learn how to save when you don't have any money. All right. So when you're broke, if you're broke right now, right, or you're not where you want to be financially, learn how to save money now. Because if you can't save $10 out of 100, I promise you, you're not going to save 1,000 out of 10,000. It won't happen. You need to develop that habit. You need to develop that muscle. You need to develop that system for saving money. And I'm not saying that you have to save, you've got expenses, you've got you've got personal expenses, you've got other things that you've got to pay for, the rent and the groceries and the light bill and the cable bill and all these other bills that you have. I understand you've got bills, but I also understand that you should be able to save $10 out of 100, right? Because if you learn how to pay yourself first, that's the important rule, right? So learning how to save when you have no money is a incredibly valuable skill. I'm going to refer you to a book. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. This had a huge impact on me when I was a young entrepreneur. I read it in my 20s, and I have never forgot that book. As a matter of fact, I probably read it again when I was in my late 30s. I haven't read it since. I probably should, even though I'm a really good saver. It will really help you. The Richest Man in Babylon. So that's number 4. Learn how to save when you don't have any money. Okay. Number 5, don't buy dumb shit. Sorry to be so bold and so brass about it, but ultimately you don't need Rolexes. You don't need fancy watches and fancy suits and fancy cars and fancy shoes and fancy houses. Listen, I promise you that if you buy all those things, you will go broke. All right. I've done it. I've made all those mistakes. I'm speaking from experience. I've made tons of mistakes with money when I was a young entrepreneur, but I learned from those mistakes and I built on those mistakes, right? I don't know the exact quote, but Warren Buffett said something to the effect, if you buy things you don't need, eventually you'll have to sell things that you do need, right? I think that's the actual quote. That's pretty good. I pulled that out of nowhere. Warren Buffett, remember this quote: if you buy things you don't need, eventually you'll have to sell things that you do need. So my rule number 5, don't buy dumb shit. Promise you, I've made that mistake. I've bought all kinds of dumb shit when I was a young entrepreneur. Don't make that mistake. Don't fall into that trap. Okay. So that's rule number 5. Number 6, right? Number 6, start a retirement account now. If you don't already have it, even if you don't have any money to put in it, get that account started now, whether that be an IRA or a Roth or a 401k. Get that retirement account started now. The power and it's almost like a magic trick, right? The power of compounding interest, right? There's that example. I'm going to ask you a quick question. Would you rather have $1 million cash? I have $1 million cash in this hand that I'll give you, right? Or would you rather have a penny that doubles every day for 30 days? Which would you rather have? In this hand, in my first hand, my right hand, we've got $1 million. I'll hand it to you. Or in my left hand, I'll give you the results of a penny that doubles every day for 30 days. Now, I'm going to save you the looking it up on Google. The fact is, you want my left hand. You want the penny a day that doubles for 30 days. Why? Because at the end of that, I think you'll have over $5 million. That's the power of compounding interest. The younger you are, the easier it is to become a millionaire if you start saving today. And I'm not talking about you having to make 6 or 7 figures in order to become a millionaire. You can become a millionaire making $30,000 or $40,000 if you invest, if you have a systematic way of investing and compounding your interest. Okay. So number 6 is start a retirement account today. Number 7, you need to learn. This is rule number 7. Okay. You need to learn how to manage your finances. So the ability, not only as a business, you need to learn how to manage your finances, but as an individual person, you need to learn how to manage your finances. You need to learn how to manage the incoming and outgoing money out of all of your accounts. Now, I can't teach you that today, and that's not something you're going to learn in 5 minutes, but you can learn this over time. It's not that complicated of a principle. And I'm going to refer you to a resource that I think will really, really help you and really helped me, even in the recent past, in the last few years, to get a better handle on my own personal and business finances, is a book by the title of Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Now, Mike is a friend of mine. He was on my podcast. I've been blessed enough to meet him, interview him for my Growth Experts podcast. Brilliant guy. He talks about a very fundamental and simple system for managing for cash management, not only on your business, but on your personal level. You'll always have money for taxes. You'll always have profit and savings. You'll always make sure your expenses are paid. It's just a very simple system that I highly recommend. Okay. So those are the 7 rules to become a freight broker millionaire. So number 1, understand customer acquisition costs and LTV and lifetime value of a client. Number 2, under promise, over deliver. Number 3, diversify your customer base. Number 4, learn how to save when you don't have money, right? Develop that habit and that muscle now. Number 5, don't buy dumb shit. Remember what Warren Buffett said, if you buy things you don't need, you'll eventually have to sell things that you do need. Number 6, start a retirement account now, today, immediately. I don't care how much money you have to put in it. If you don't have a retirement account, start a retirement account. If you do have a retirement account, start contributing to that retirement account weekly, every paycheck, monthly, or however you want to do it, some systematic way. And number 7 is learn how to manage your finances. If you're struggling with that on a personal or company level, check out Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to do some live Q&A. But before we do that, again, if you're a first timer here, or you've been sitting on the fence and you've been debating on whether you're going to become a freight broker or freight agent, or you want to get some training, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com, the most cost-effective, comprehensive online freight broker training program available on the internet. Been around for over a decade, trained over 8,000 students, and we offer a 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. So make sure you check that out if you're curious. Really appreciate you being here. I am going to do some Q&A. Let me grab a quick drink because I've been talking really fast and my throat is dry, and I want you guys to come up with some questions. Okay. But before we put the questions in there, okay, before you start with drilling me with these questions, don't type your questions yet. I have a question for you, right? Who here has a goal of becoming a millionaire during their lifetime? Right? So who here has a goal of becoming a millionaire? Now, not everybody has to become a millionaire, and that's okay. You can live a fantastic life without having $1 million in your bank account. Don't get me wrong. But I want to know the people out there that really are going for the brass ring, the people that really want to become super successful as a freight broker and eventually accumulate over $1 million in wealth. I'm not talking about doing $1 million in revenue. Doing $1 million in revenue as a freight broker is easy, in my opinion. Okay. And again, that's subjective, but having $1 million in your personal bank account is a different animal, right? And so that's why I put these 7 rules together. Who here has the goal of becoming a millionaire or more as an entrepreneur, as a freight broker, as a freight agent? All right. So hold on one second here. All right, cool. Sorry, I had to bang that, but that was my mouse and I didn't want to lose connection here. So, all right, cool. So what do we got here? Let's see who we got. Oh, we got lots. Jeez, everybody's raising their hand. Mike, you like that one? Don't buy dumb shit. Says it all, right? Brenda, Miss McCoy, Nene, Terrence, Cindy, Abel, Isis, Mike. Man. Yeah, so I think that's everybody's goal. I remember when I was young, that was my goal. It's really funny. I'm going to tell you a quick story. And this is another lesson that you might be able to apply. I remember when I was early in my career, one of my goals was to become a millionaire, right? I wanted to become a millionaire by the time I was 30. That was one of my early goals. And so I remember one of these exercises that I used to do. I was always big into sports, and I used to do visualization. I used to visualize when I was doing sports. I wrestled all through high school and college, and then I picked up judo and martial arts, and I've been a competitor for many years. So I've used visualization in sports, and I started using it in business. And one of the things that I did that really, I still remember to this day, it was pretty wild. It was an exercise that I learned. I think I learned it from Anthony Robbins when I read one of his personal development books early in my career. And it was about visualization. And what I would do was this. I remember I think I was living in Buffalo. I had an apartment that I was renting. And I remember I I would sit down and I would visualize, and it would only take me a couple of minutes. And this routine that would go through my head is I would visualize walking out of my house, walking down to the mailbox, and I would open up the mailbox, and in my mailbox would be mail. Of course, that's within a mailbox. And I would pull out the letters and I'd rifle through the letters. And one of the letters would be from my bank. And I've been doing business with KeyBank for a long, long time. And so the letter would be from KeyBank, and I would open it up and I would pull out the statement and I'd scroll down the statement, and on the statement, and I'm visualizing all this. Remember, didn't happen for real for a very long time. I'd scroll down, and at the bottom, there would be a balance of $1 million in my account. And I remember visualizing that hundreds and hundreds of times, right? And I remember how that made me feel. I mean, I literally, when I just did that exercise, I literally just got chills. So I remember how that made me feel. And that visualization exercise made it so real in my mind that I was going to achieve that goal because I lived it every day, visualizing it. It only took me a minute or two every day to do that, but eventually that became true, right? It became real. And so, that's another tip that you might be able to deploy. Again, it may seem a little woo-woo to some of you. It may seem a little bit crazy to others, but I'm a big believer in visualization. I used it in sports when I was younger. And I used it in business, and I was very fortunate, right? So I hope you guys can garner something from that. Let's do some Q&A. I've only got a limited amount of time, but I do want to answer some questions for you guys. Why don't we jump into some questions? Eduardo, millionaire before you're 30, you can do it. You're 24, 6 years, you can do it. You got to buckle down. You got to build a business, and you got to start saving money. But yeah, if you follow those 7 principles, you can definitely do it, Eduardo. All right, so here we go. What are the questions? Hit me with some questions, whether it be about the 7 habits or the 7 rules, whether it be about starting a freight brokerage, becoming a freight agent, whatever it is. Let me know what your questions are, and then we're going to dive in. All right. So what do we got? Scrolling. All right, here we go. Okay, so here's a question. Where can I construct my own broker shipper contract, or who would I get to for that? Okay, Raquel, well, in my Freight Broker Bootcamp online training program, we supply all the contracts and forms that you need, which is a broker carrier contract, broker shipper contract, broker agent contract, as well as all the forms and things you need. Now, that's available in my online course, right? So anybody who's a paid member of that course gets access to that. But if you're not a member of that, you can just go on Google and search for freight broker carrier agreement, freight broker shipper agreement, and you will find different companies that have their contracts uploaded to their website. They're typically PDFs or Word documents, and you can literally find sample contracts that way. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you take either the contracts that are in Freight Broker Bootcamp or contracts that you find online and just use them at face value. You're going to want to review them. You may even want to have an attorney look at them. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. Even though I have a bachelor's degree in pre-law, I didn't go to law school. I did not pass the bar exam. I didn't go through that whole process. I decided to be an entrepreneur. But ultimately, that's a couple of ways that you can get access to a freight broker contract, right? Freight broker carrier, freight broker shipper agreements. Hope that helps. All right. All right, so Pamela Martin asks, what's the best way to build a shipper database? Well, shippers are everywhere. Here's the good thing about being in the logistics transportation industry. Shippers are everywhere. I'm going to give you 2 easy ways to build a shipper database. Go to the grocery store. If you go to the grocery store and you look on the shelves, every one of those items went on a truck. They all got delivered on a truck. At some point during the supply chain, they all went on a truck. And so look at those products that you use in your cabinet or that are in your Lazy Susan or in your food pantry, right? Look at those products and look at the manufacturers and where they're from. That's one way that very easy, very free, very simple, very quickly, you can start developing a shipper database, a shipper list, a prospecting list of shippers. Okay. So I hope that's what you're asking. I'm pretty sure that's what you're asking for is to develop a list of shippers. You can do that with any store, right? Go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's, go to wherever it is that you shop, and every product that you buy went on a truck at some point. Now, if you're, depending upon your niche, you may need to find that niche, right? Where they sell those products. But ultimately, that's a very simple way, a very free way, and a quick way to start developing a shipper prospecting list. Hope that helps. All right. Nika asks, can I repeat 1 through 4? I'm going to repeat all 7. The 7 rules to becoming a freight broker millionaire. Number 1, understanding CAC and LTV, customer acquisition cost and lifetime value of a customer. Rule number 2, under promise, over deliver. Okay. Number 3, diversify your customer base. Don't be beholden to just 1 or 2 or 3 big clients. Number 4, learn how to save when you don't have any money, right? When you're broke, learn how to save, develop that muscle and that habit and that system now. Number 5, don't buy dumb shit. That pretty much sums it up. Number 6, start a retirement account today. If you don't have one already, start one. An IRA, a 401k, a Roth, whatever it is, start a retirement account today and start contributing, even no matter how small it is. And number 7, learn how to manage your finances. I recommend a book by the name of, titled Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. So those are the 7 rules to become a freight broker millionaire. Thanks for asking, Nika. Hope it helps. So SLD asks, oops, 1 second. I'm back. How can I build a business without factoring? Well, there's a couple of ways. There's really only one way you can build a business without factoring, and that is you either have to have cash on hand that you have yourself to finance the cost of the business. Typically, your biggest cost as a broker is your carrier cost, which is the payments to a carrier that you have to make, right? And so it's negative cash flow. Typically, shippers pay you somewhere between 45 and 60 days on average, and carriers want to get paid somewhere between 21 and 30 days. So there's a negative cash flow there. So you either have to have the cash or you have to have credit, right? So credit with a bank. Now, factoring is typically a temporary fix to this. So I recommend that people use factoring their first year or 2 while they're building the relationship with their bank, and their bank can understand their financials and can realize that they have a profitable, growing business. And then at that point, once you have customers and you're doing business, the bank will then lend you money based on your receivables, right? So based on the business that you're doing with your clients, your invoices, they will usually lend you or set up a credit line. Maybe they'll set up a credit line that's 60% of your receivables or 70% of your receivables. So, which is basically the money that's owed to you. And that's how you'll be able to eventually build your credit in such a way that you won't need factoring. Other than that, you're either going to have the capital yourself, borrow the capital, or raise capital by bringing in investors. And I typically don't, if you're not familiar with raising capital or having partners or investors, I typically don't recommend that unless you have some experience with it, but it is an option. So I hope that helps, SLD. All right. Danelle96 asks, do you have a program for guys like me that have been brokering freight for a few years, a program that's focused on cold calling and acquiring more customers? Danelle, I do. You're not a startup broker, so Freight Broker Bootcamp is probably not the right course for you, right? That's more designed for people that are just getting started. Now, it does have cold calling and sales and marketing and things in there, but you're looking for something a little bit more intensive. What I would suggest, Danelle, is to private message me through the Facebook group, PM me through the Facebook group. I will tell you about something I'm working on kind of behind the scenes that might help you. I think it will. I don't want to overstate, right? Under promise, over deliver. So if you private message me about more of an advanced sales training program, I'll share with you some information on that, and who knows where that may go. Okay. So I hope that helps. Again, it's not really for this audience predominantly. That's more my Freight Broker Bootcamp online training program for startup brokers and startup agents. Again, we cover cold calling and we cover some of the fundamentals of getting customers in there. But if you want more of an advanced strategy, that's something where I would suggest you private message me. Thanks for asking. All right. So the Patriot Marine asks, which do you recommend as a starter, a freight broker or a freight dispatcher? I don't ever recommend freight dispatchers because I've said it before. I'll say it again. I believe it's unauthorized brokering of freight. I believe it's illegal because you're brokering freight without an authority. That's just my belief, and that's what the law says, right? So if your question is, should you start as a freight broker or a freight agent, that's different. Now, I started as a freight broker, but I didn't have any experience, but I had quite a bit of entrepreneurial experience before I started this business. And so I started as a freight broker, but I recommend that if you don't have a lot of entrepreneurial experience, if you're limited on capital or you don't have a lot of transportation experience, I recommend you start as a freight agent because the barrier to entry is very low. Your risk is very low. And the fact is if you can't make money as a freight agent, you're definitely not going to make money as a freight broker, right? Because it's just a little bit more complex to become a broker because you've got licensing and bonding and billing and all those things that you have to handle as a broker. But as an agent, you don't have to handle those at all. And just so you know, my average agent, when I sold the company, made over $107,000 working from home. I've had individual agents that worked for me for my previous company that made over $100,000 in 1 month in commission. Now, I'm not going to promise that that's what you're going to make. I'm not going to promise that most of you will never make that kind of money. Okay. I'm just being very upfront with you. But becoming a freight agent can be very, very lucrative. A lot of people look down their nose at it, but I can tell you it's the easiest, fastest, least amount of risk, least amount of expense to get started in the industry is to start as a freight agent. So that's what I would recommend. Hope that helps. Victor asks, will the advanced sales training be available down the road for Freight Broker Bootcamp subscribers and customers and students? Yes, absolutely. It'll be something that I will offer as an additional separate course, as a separate training. But it's definitely advanced. You're definitely going to have to qualify for it. Not everybody is going to be allowed in the program, but I definitely will offer it. So I hope that helps, Victor. All right, so I'm just scrolling. I'm looking for some questions. Give me a minute. So here's a good question. James Baxter, I get this question all the time. If I had a nickel for every time I got this question, I'd have a lot of nickels, okay? How do you start as a freight agent when companies require experience? You don't go to the largest freight agent companies out there and ask to become an agent for the largest companies out there because they are looking for experienced agents. They don't need agents with no experience. So if you go to my old company, Logistic Dynamics, and you ask to become an agent, you have no experience, they're going to turn you away. 99% of the time, you're going to get turned away because they don't need startup agents with no experience. They've developed a product and a brand and a reputation and technology and systems that can attract agents who have an established book of business. So they don't need to hire inexperienced agents. Now, who is more open to hiring inexperienced agents? Smaller, newer brokerages. So my suggestion is find brokerages that have been around for a year or 2 or 3 years who are growing, but are looking for more help to grow their business. The fact is, more than half the freight brokers out there, the last stat that I heard, more than half the freight brokerages in the United States do less than 5 million in sales. So there are tons of freight brokers out there. There are over 15,000 freight brokers out there, depending upon who you ask. And so there are thousands of freight brokers out there that do less than 5 million in sales that would love to have you as a freight agent. So what you don't do is you don't go to Indeed or the job boards and find people that are posting ads about becoming an agent, because most of them are going to want experienced agents. So I put together an entire training. It's on my YouTube channel. It's on my blog. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog and type in get hired as a freight agent. There's an entire blog post and a video and a training and everything that I do about how to get hired as a freight agent. I promise you that if you, and I'll challenge you or anybody right now, call 50 brokerages over the next week to 2 weeks and present your follow the training and the formula that I give you in that video and that blog post that I just told you about on how to get hired as a freight agent with no experience. Call 50 brokers, follow my format. And if you don't get hired, right? If you don't get an opportunity to get a job as an agent, to get hired as an independent contractor, as an agent, I'll give you $100. I've challenged, you know how many people I've challenged to do that? None of them have ever done it. Either they never called the companies, they never called the brokerages, or they called them and they got a job and they got hired as an agent. So just follow my system and you'll get hired as an agent if that's what you want to do. But if you go to all the large companies and all the companies that are advertising for agents, you're probably not going to get hired. So don't go there. Do what I tell you. Okay? And you'll get hired. Hope that helps. All right. All right, CJ Parent asks, explain book of business, please, and how to develop it. A book of business, when people refer to a book of business, what they mean is an active shipper client base. That means a client customer database of active shippers that are actually shipping freight with you. That's a book of business. So if you have 10 clients that you've been doing business with for anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years, and those 10 clients represent, $200,000 or $500,000 in revenue or profit or whatever the case may be, that is a book of business, right? So that is something that's portable. That's something that comes with you. Those are based on your relationships and the work that you've done to acquire a customer database. I'm not talking about a list of prospects that you buy on the internet. I'm not talking about a list of prospects that you assemble in the supermarket, like I talked about earlier with creating a prospect list. I'm talking about active shipper database of shippers that are doing business with you. Hope that helps, CJ. CJ, the blog is freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog. That's where you can check out those articles. All right, Brahim asks, what are the steps to choosing your niche? There are basically 3 or 4 different ways to develop a niche. One is by industry. So you can focus in on a specific industry, steel, produce, building supplies, import, export, things of that nature. Those are niches by industry, right? The other way you can do it is by equipment type. So you can niche down into flatbed or heavy haul or van or refrigerated or expedited or power only, things like that. You can niche down by equipment. The other is you can niche down by geography, right? So you can focus in on lanes. When I first started my freight brokerage, we started with van freight out of the Northeast going west or south. So we limited our geography to like New York and PA and Mass and Connecticut and that Northeast New England corridor. And if it went west or south, then those were our prospects. But if it was going from Texas into the Northeast, those were not our prospects, right? So we were looking for a specific geography. And then the fourth way is to do some sort of a hybrid. I did a hybrid when I first started. It was van freight only, Northeast outbound. That was my example. That's what I did. And then we eventually expanded into other niches. So Brahim, I hope that helps. Again, I also have a blog post on that where you can check out all the details in the video at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog. And then you can just search the blog directory for niche. Just search the word niche and it'll bring up the post for you. So I hope that helps. All right, so Scott Armstrong asks, are there any legal binding contracts I need to have a freight agent sign if I hire a new agent under my authority in order to make that agent legally recognized freight agent with my company? There are no laws that say you have to have a contract with an agent. It's just good business, right? So no different than having an employee. You typically don't have a contract with an employee. If you authorize themselves to represent themselves as associated with your company, then you can do that. But I do highly recommend that as a freight broker, you do have a contract with your agent so that there are no mistakes. It defines your responsibilities, it defines their responsibilities, and it defines the compensation that they are going to be paid. Those are the three primary things that you need to cover in that freight agent agreement. Again, we have a freight agent agreement, a freight broker carrier agreement, and a freight broker shipper agreement in my Freight Broker Bootcamp online training program. So you guys can check that out. That's part of the program, part of the course, if you're already a member. If not, check it out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Thanks for the question, Scott. All right, Rishi asks, where can I find produce leads for shippers? Well, you can go to Google. Google is always a good place to start. But I did recently assemble a database of over 25,000 produce shippers, right? So this is a private database that I put together of 25,000 growers, retailers, brokers, wholesalers, right? These are people that are deep into the produce industry, right? These are the top produce providers, over 25,000 of them. Now, that's not free. That's not part of my Freight Broker Bootcamp course. I have a separate shipper database that's part of that, but it's not niched out as produce. If you are interested in that produce database, right now it's $497. Okay. It's going to go up to $1,000 very soon. I've been sleeping on it. I probably should raise the price right now. I'm limiting the number of people that can do it. If you guys want that, you can private message me through the Facebook page. But again, please don't waste my time. It's a gold mine of a database. But if you're not willing to invest in it, $500 for the database, I mean, you'll make that back with 2 or 3 loads, right? But if you're not willing to invest the $500, $497 for that type of database, please don't private message me. I'm just really busy. I know you are too. But if you're serious and you want the produce shipper database, private message me through the Facebook group. I'll send you some info. We'll have a dialogue and I'll see if that's something that I can sell you. Okay. And I don't give it out to everybody. I don't sell it to everybody. I'm very selective on who I work with. Okay. All right. So hope that helps. All right. So here's a question from Harriet. How do I not sound like I don't know what I'm talking about during cold calling as a new broker? Well, the way you sound like you know what you're talking about is to practice. Get trained. Practice your script. Practice, practice, practice. Again, here's the thing that you have to understand. Everybody's bad before they're good. I was bad. Admittedly, I was the worst salesperson that had ever been hired when I got my first job as a senior in college. My first real job as a senior in college. I got hired into sales. It was March of 1992, the year I was graduating. I was graduating in May. I got hired in a sales job. I was self-proclaimed the worst salesperson they had ever hired. Within 6 months, I was one of the top salespeople they had ever hired, but I was terrible when I first started. I sounded horrible on the phone. You know what got me better? doing the calls, doing the calls, doing the calls, practicing, 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 making mistakes, improving, critiquing myself, taking critiques from other people, learning from other people, emulating the top salespeople. That's what allowed me to go from being the worst salesperson to the top salesperson. Okay. And that's the only thing I can tell you. You're going to be bad when you first start. That's okay. Everybody sucks before they're good. As long as you can take ownership of that, as long as you can deal with that, you'll be fine. You just need to make the calls. But before you start making the calls, just practice. Practice in the mirror. Practice when you're driving. Hold up your iPhone and do a video. Record yourself. Do things like that put yourself in a situation where you can critique yourself and you can fix those things that you see are wrong or glaringly obvious where it doesn't sound like you know what you're doing. But the only way to know what you're doing and to truly know what you're doing is to do it. Right? And so don't be afraid to make some mistakes. It's okay. I promise you. It's not going to hurt. So question, how much do you charge for Freight Broker Bootcamp for beginners? My online Freight Broker training program has 2 memberships. One is a gold membership, which is a 1-year membership. You get unlimited access to the training. That's $185. That's it. We also have a platinum lifetime membership where you get access for lifetime support. Plus you get a bunch of bonuses, a whole bunch of bonuses I throw in there. And that's $389. So we're not talking about a lot of money. It's very inexpensive. Again, I catch a lot of slack from other people that are training in the industry because I charge so little. It's mainly because I don't need the money, right? I was very fortunate, sold my brokerage, did over $200 million in sales. And I have other businesses as well. I try to make it very affordable. My goal is to be in the most affordable and most comprehensive online training program available for freight brokers and freight agents. And that's what we're known as. So I hope that helps. Check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Duranger, perfect practice makes perfect. Exactly. Mark Jones, good advice. All right, guys. So listen, that's the last question that I see on the list here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this training. Give me some feedback here. Let me know your feedback. 1 to 10. 1 meaning, Dennis, this was terrible. You suck. I just want honest feedback. 5, you can't really give a 5. It's either a 1 or kind of a 10, right? If I knocked it out of the park and you think this was valuable, the training and the Q&A, let me know. I'm just looking for feedback. This isn't to feed my ego. This is for me to understand the topics and the types of trainings that are valuable to you, not to me. I've already been there. I've already done that. I've already made these mistakes. I've already been fortunate. We've done $200 million in sales as a freight broker. I've made millions of dollars along the way, even before I sold my company. So we were very blessed. I'm here for you. These are things that I want to provide for you. So give me the feedback, 1 to 10. And it's okay. I'm a big boy. I've got thick skin. If I'm terrible, tell me why. Tell me what my score is and tell me why. And I promise you, I'll try to improve on it the same way as I suggested you practice your sales pitch, practice your sales calls so that you sound like you know what you're doing, so that shippers won't spot you as a new person, right? So I hope this helps. Great feedback. Thank you as always for the amazing feedback. Super excited that you guys were here today. Again, I do these Freight Broker Bootcamp Lives every Monday at noon. They're absolutely free. You know what the price of admission is? Share the stream. Make sure you like this stream, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, wherever you're at. Make sure, number 1, you like the stream. Number 2, share the stream. Trust me, I see and get notified all the people that share the stream, that go that extra mile and share. And I look for all those people in the comments when I'm trying to answer questions or when people send me private messages or when people send support tickets in. I'm always looking for those people because I appreciate them going the extra mile and sharing the stream. So if you guys want to help, if you want to help other people and you want to help the Freight Broker Bootcamp community, share the stream. Totally appreciate you guys being here. Have an awesome day. And I'll be back next week, Monday at noon with another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Have an awesome day and we'll talk soon.